Hello there.
Holy smokes, is episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett one of the best pieces of Star Wars content that we have ever had in the history of Star Wars? I think possibly, yeah. What's going on, guys? Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well. And in today's video, we of course are breaking down the Book of Boba Fett episode 6. Of course, with all the different things that you may or may have not missed, a full frame-by-frame breakdown here of the overall episode. And of course, I'm going to hold my honest review, thoughts, and opinions, and furthermore theories and speculations towards the end of the video. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. So without further ado, let's hop right on into it. The episode begins with a couple of pikes, kind of just messing around in literally the middle of nowhere, as described by the one and only Cobb Vanth. Making his return in the Book of Boba Fett, Cobb Vanth was of course first seen in The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 1, and actually had the armor of Boba Fett. Cobb Vanth is essentially a space sheriff and just kind of taking care of any public trouble that comes around towards his town, and in this case it was the pikes, and he did it out of the heart of the good, and that was in his heart, of course. He didn't have really any beef or anything with the pikes, and honestly at that he really didn't know what they were completely up to, aside from Spice, of course, which we do see him stand down these guys as they try to pull their guns on him. He's able to pull his even faster, taking down 3 out of 4 of these guys. He lets the last one go, but that could have been a little bit of a problem, because what if that last pike is the one that sent Cad Bane towards the end of the episode? Something we'll talk about a little later, of course. Just like that, we're off to an amazing start for episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. We go on to see Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, and what he's up to, pretty much essentially leaving off from exactly where we left off on episode 5 of the Book of Boba Fett, which a lot of fans were, of course, raving for, as it was absolutely amazing, and I'm pretty surprised that they actually did this. It's a direct continuation. I thought there really honestly would have been some type of gap here, and that type of gap we would have seen somewhere in The Mandalorian Season 3, and we would have been able to focus a little bit more on Boba Fett throughout this episode, something I'm honestly going to talk about in a completely separate video. People, including myself, are of course a little bit confused here on what planet this exactly is. Now, I've heard a few good suggestions. This is possibly Endor, and I think that very well could be, of course, maybe a different part of Endor. It definitely doesn't really seem like the same planet that we see Luke Skywalker and his academy on in The Last Jedi, unless, of course, maybe somehow the planet was flooded in some weird way. But other than that, I'm putting my money on it's probably Endor. A lot of other fans were also pretty interested into seeing how the Mandalorian was going to be able to track down Luke Skywalker and Grogu, and in this case, he seems to have a little bit of a sensor, if you will, or a tracker at that maybe Luke Skywalker gave to him or something like that. I'm not completely sure on how he was able to obtain this. It probably sent it to him or something like that. And of course, we see a familiar face that's reaching right back out and directing this N1 Naboo starfighter, of course, Din Djarin's new starfighter, of course, and that familiar face is none other than R2-D2. Now, honestly, in my own thoughts and opinions, if you ask me, the first thing that I think a lot of people think of is when they think of Star Wars is, for, of course, one thing, Darth Vader, but I think a lot of other people also think of R2-D2. He's just such an iconic character in the Star Wars franchise, and it's always amazing to see him once again. Din Djarin makes his landing, of course, right on down into a nice little spot here, and he even interacts a little bit with R2, asking he's here to see the kid, Grogu, of course, and R2 then goes on to direct the Mandalorian into the temple that is being built. It's honestly really cool to see how far Din Djarin's come to liking droids, seeing that from the first time that we saw the Mandalorian in Season 1 is that he was completely opposed to any droids and their services, and was honestly low-key kind of terrified of them from his PTSD with the Clone Wars and being so afraid of the B2 battle droids. R2 brings him to one of the first buildings of the temple and the overall academy that's being built here, and of course they're being built by these little droids that look like ants, actually, which I think is honestly pretty cool. And by the end of the episode, we're even able to see the full construction and the completed building here towards the end. The androids go ahead and build a little bench for Mando, because he's of course going to be waiting some time here, and with that, RT goes and powers off and goes and takes a little rest as well. The way that they did these next couple of scenes here with showing us a little bit of the atmosphere and the overall planet and some of the nature on the overall planet, I think was absolutely amazing and served absolutely perfectly, until we're able to see the one and only Grogu and Luke freaking Skywalker meditating together on a little hill. Okay, bear with me for these next couple of moments here. I need to just get this off my chest. I was absolutely astonished and blown away by the way that they did Luke Skywalker and how far they were able to come from last seeing him in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. Now, believe it or not, fans are actually saying that this is another deepfake. This is CGI. That's right, you heard this correctly. When I first saw this, I legitimately thought they casted a legit actor. Maybe somebody that looked looked exactly like him, like maybe Sebastian Stan or something like that, and maybe a little bit of a de-aging process there, but I'm not completely sure on who exactly the body double is in this case. It very well could be Max Lloyd-Jones once again, who was the body double in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale, but I really just need to get it out there that this is CGI, guys. This is absolutely insanely good, and it's insanely talented on how they were able to pull this off, because it looks so well and so very good, and literally nobody's like complaining about it or anything like that. They definitely could go full force and do an entire separate show regarding Luke Skywalker and his Jedi Academy in the future. Even then, it's 110% possible that we could even see other of our favorite characters, such as Han Solo coming back, or Leia, of course, also somewhere appearing here in future episodes or future seasons of the Mandalorian universe. Everything about it is completely perfect and absolutely amazing, and even the voice blew me absolutely away. It sounded exactly like the original Mark Hamill from the original trilogy. It just left me absolutely speechless. Now, of course, on top of this hill, the two of them are meditating, while at the same time Grogu keeps getting off a task here, and is, of course, as per usual, trying to go after some yummy frogs, and a reoccurring theme with the frog lady and him and her eggs that we saw in the Mandalorian Season 2. He even gets to the point where he uses the Force on one of them to lift it up and bring it over to him, and Luke Skywalker, of course, notices this and does this and shows off a little bit towards Grogu and lifting dozens and dozens of frogs out of the swamp marshes. This honestly felt like a direct parallel towards The Empire Strikes Back when Yoda lifts Luke's X-Wing out of the swamp. Luke and Grogu go on a walk, and on that walk, Luke mentions a Grand Master Yoda. Of course, Yoda. But during this, he's asking some specific questions up to Grogu. Do you remember Grand Master Yoda from the Jedi Temple and that prequel era during the Clone Wars and all those types of questions? Also, I should probably mention that during this, I thought it was absolutely adorable how on this little walk, Luke, of course, was using the Force to lift up Grogu and make him hop like a little frog. A little bit of a theory I've been kind of seeing going around, however, with Grogu and his past and his memories, and not being exactly able to remember his past and what happened during the Clone Wars, what happened during Order 66, is for good reason that it was possibly covered up and made him forget. Whoever did this to him maybe did it on purpose, that he was purposely made to forget these events, or from the other idea that psychologically in the real world, that when you experience a traumatic event, that normally your brain will actually block those events out in order to make you forget. It can kind of be a rare thing, but it's a legit real world thing that happens in the real world, and this very well could be the case with Grogu and what happened with him during Order 66, and really evidently the entirety of the Clone Wars and prequel era. And as if having Luke Skywalker and Grogu take up a good 20-25 minutes of the episode, we get a totally unexpected scene here as Luke Skywalker helps Grogu remember his past and holds his hand towards his head and helps him remember some of the past of Order 66 as we get these amazing flashbacks. In these flashbacks, we're at the Jedi Temple, and the 501st Clone Legion, this was Anakin's Clone Legion, is of course taking on these Jedi. 3 Jedi are appearing in front of Grogu as he watches in horror and in fear. Not to mention the fact that he's been wearing the same clothes for nearly the last a solid 30-ish years at this point in time, or at least I'm guessing because it looks very familiar to what he's wearing in the present time with the Mandalorian. However, in front of him he watches these 3 Jedi take on these 501st Clone Legion clones, and in horror he watches each one get taken down and shot down. This is something I hopefully assumed that we would see in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, as we're said to get flashbacks in that show, so I have a feeling that this is maybe what it would look like to a sense, or maybe even it could be something that would be closer towards what we're seeing in the flashbacks with Boba Fett. Also, the fact that we're seeing live action clone troopers once again, we haven't seen something like this since the prequels when those came out back in 2005 with Revenge of the Sith, is absolutely mind-blowing. When Grogu finally awakens once again from these horrible flashbacks, he even seems to be in a different spot than when he first went into these flashbacks. He's now sitting back on the hill with Luke Skywalker, and Luke explains to him that the galaxy is a dangerous place, and in order to protect yourself, it would be rather nifty to train as a Jedi. We then cut back over towards Mando as he awakens from his sleeping beauty to a wonderful surprise to many Star Wars fans, as we once again see the return of Rosario Dawson as the one and only Ahsoka Tano. After all, the episode was written, or at least co-written, by Dave Filoni, and furthermore directed by Dave Filoni. How could he not make one of his most wonderful Star Wars creations appear in this episode? Mandalorian, of course, asks her, where and when can I see Grogu? When can I see my son, essentially? And she says, let's go for a walk, and on this walk she explains to him that the Jedi are forbidden to have attachments, and this is something I was a little skeptical on if they were to still carry through with this after the whole New Republic era here, and after the Clone Wars and after that prequel era, because that was something that was strictly set from the Jedi Order. Or allow me to rephrase that, much rather the Council members. This very well may be the overall idea, and also not to mention that Ahsoka Tano was alive and there during the Clone Wars and prequel era, so very well she could be the one that's enforcing this upon Luke Skywalker and even told him about it. It's definitely depressing that Mando has to make this choice and not interfere with the child's or Grogu's training here as a Jedi, as he really does want the best for him. He hands the gift that he wanted to give Grogu to Ahsoka, and later on we see her pass that to Luke Skywalker, who passes it on to Grogu towards the end of the episode, as we're left with a huge major cliffhanger that will hopefully be explained for The Mandalorian Season 3. As Mando leaves behind Grogu in this tough choice, Grogu, we see, reaches out towards the Naboo starfighter, and not to mention, Grogu doesn't know what type of starship that Mandalorian has, of course, so it very well could see that he is actually sensing that the Mandalorian's presence here on the planet, and that he is reaching out to him, and that he is leaving. He knows that that's the Mandalorian in the Naboo starfighter. Now, it's either that or the guy likes spaceships. I don't really know. I do kind of like my theory, and it's something I'll probably dive a little deeper into a separate video. And already ranking in at a solid the first 10-15 minutes of the overall episode, I thought our time with Luke Skywalker and Grogu were going to be over, and that we would actually embark onto more of this in the Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 1, but I was undoubtedly wrong, and for the better at that. We embark on an amazing montage, essentially, of Luke Skywalker showing Grogu the ins and outs first of what it means to necessarily be a Jedi, what you need to do in order to train to be a Jedi, and some of the things that they do. They do cool flips, have lightsabers, and of course use the Force, and this is essentially what Luke Skywalker is trying to do in order to engage that intriguement from Grogu. It's absolutely wild on some of these different scenes, and this whole, I guess, like, overall aspect, it still has me speechless. I had a review, or rather a reaction video at the beginning of the day, and I'm honestly still left speechless. And towards the end of it, he tells him, at the end of this montage, Luke Skywalker tells Grogu that in order to be a Jedi, it will protect you, as the galaxy and the universe is essentially a very dangerous place. And while he's not necessarily wrong about this, I feel like that he's trying to use, in a sense, what Grogu's PTSD is, essentially back to Order 66 in the Clone Wars, in an effort to essentially get him hooked and to be his first Jedi Academy student. It's not necessarily a bad thing, and it definitely has meaning, but I kind of feel like it's a little wrong at the same time. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Sure, Grogu does seem like a kid at the time, but rather in reality he is 50 years old, and I feel like that he is eventually going to be hitting those teen years. By the time of The Force Awakens, Grogu is nearly a teenager, seeing that he would be 80 years old. To give you guys a better idea and understanding of the timeline that Grogu is working with, when Yoda was around 100 years old, he was a Grand Master, a Jedi Master at that. See Luke Skywalker pull out this little training reflex ball, as he describes, and it's in order to essentially train you and test your reflexes as a Jedi and with the Force. And this is an instant callback to A New Hope. This is something that Luke Skywalker himself was using when he was first training to be a Jedi and was aboard the Millennium Falcon on the way to the Death Star 2 with Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo, and the rest of the gang. This here is very, very interesting and honestly incredible. We see Grogu's cute side go from something a little bit more. This isn't just a cute little baby, honestly, and this is something that a lot of people have been preaching. This guy is absolutely bizarre and nuts. This guy has trained with legit Jedi. He's trained with Yoda. He is from the Clone Wars and the prequel era. He knows a thing or two, and we just haven't necessarily seen it until now. He begins to do wild, crazy flips all over, dodging the blast from the spiraling ball, and we see a whole nother side of Grogu that we've never seen before. This isn't necessarily just a cute little baby puppet that you might think, and it is honestly absolutely incredible. And also something that we see mentioned from Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano at that is the fact that it's an idea of not necessarily teaching him, but essentially reminding him of what he does know and from his past of being a Jedi during the Clone Wars and the prequel era. The episode is filled with all types of awesome and amazing, incredible, honestly dreams come true for many Star Wars fans out there. We have our first long-awaited interaction between Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, as she does reveal to the Mandalorian that they are actually family friends, and that is necessarily the truth. Of course, Ahsoka Tano is the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker all the way back from the clone era, and it definitely really does show, and it even brings a tear to your eye as she mentions to Luke Skywalker, "You remind me of your father." It's honestly overly heartwarming, and I absolutely love to see it. This is here what I'm here for, but something I would like to see, and I think I speak for a lot of you Star Wars fans out there, is that we could necessarily maybe have some type of flashback towards the first meeting of Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano, when they sit over a campfire and talk about the one and only the chosen one. Anakin Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano's master and Luke Skywalker's father, I think would be such an incredible and amazing bonding moment, especially for Luke Skywalker since he never really had the chance to necessarily really get to know his father all that much. Something else that is importantly mentioned throughout this, and something that is even said by Dave Filoni himself, is the fact that Ahsoka Tano is essentially preserving herself as a mentor types of figure here towards Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is looking up towards Ahsoka Tano. Can you honestly imagine that? Such a wise seeming Jedi out of all people, Luke Skywalker looking up towards Ahsoka Tano is such an incredible thing. Not that I'm saying that Ahsoka Tano's bad or anything like that, and that she shouldn't be looked up upon, because I definitely look up upon her character and what she does morally and all of that type of stuff. I think that's absolutely incredible, and it furthermore builds and strengthens such a bond between Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano. Many more videos to come upon, of course, talking about Luke Skywalker and Grogu and Ahsoka Tano here, but I don't want to spend the entirety of this rest of this video talking about it because we could honestly be here for hours and days on end. Now, after this whole, of course, appearance here of what is honestly one of the best appearances in all of Star Wars, Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, and Grogu, what an amazing trio, that we head back over to Tatooine with the Mandalorian as he's meeting with Fennec Shand and Boba Fett, of course, and right here is your, I guess, 10 minutes or 10 seconds at that of screen time that you will have of Boba Fett for this episode, so appreciate it, and maybe you'll get some more in the next episode. No, seriously though, jokes aside, I feel like they're really lacking Boba Fett, essentially for a show that's about Boba Fett. This is something I've had an entirety of a video talking about last week, and I'm probably going to continue to talk about this here on the channel, of course, because it's just weird and it feels out of place, because at the same time we're getting such amazing content for Star Wars, but at the same time you are kind of missing out on the whole Boba Fett aspects. But at the same time, it's kind of weird because people kind of want Boba Fett to back off a little. They felt like in these first couple of episodes is that Boba Fett was talking too much for what we had seen previously in the Clone Wars or in the original trilogy, is that this is just kind of a silent guy. He's just kind of in the shadows and in the corner, and that's essentially what people want him to revert back to, and that's exactly what's happening in these, I guess, cases here. And yeah, I guess be careful what you wish for in those types of aspects, because now we're really heavily lacking some of that Boba content, especially for a show that's about Boba Fett. And as I had mentioned, it's something I could continue to talk about here for hours and hours on end and make multiple videos on, which I do plan to do. So make sure you guys are subscribing and hitting that notification bell to be notified when I do talk about that later on. Of course, during this whole meeting, Fennec Shand is explaining to the group that the Pikes are growing in numbers and it's getting worse and worse, especially from the last time that we were with this team of Fennec Shand and Boba Fett since episode 4. Now, of course, there's that gap during episode 5 where the entirety of the episode was focused on the Mando and the Mandalorian, so I do notice a few new faces here in the group, especially with the mod pollers, as they're being called here, the cyborg guys. Which is good because they're definitely going to need more muscle, if you will, and that is necessarily the case, and that is why they have Mando. Mando steps into the room and says, hey, I know a guy, and that guy, of course, is Cobb Vanth, the guy that we saw at the beginning of the episode, as he goes on over and has a little bit of a chat with Cobb Vanth to try and convince him to join Boba Fett and his cause, and with the entirety of the civilians here also in the town to join this cause here and help Boba Fett essentially with the Pikes, as they had helped him with the Kyra dragon that we had seen in Mando Season 2, Episode 1, which was absolutely incredible. It takes a little considering, of course, on Cobb Vanth's end, but at the end of the day, he says, sure, I'll be there, and it kind of ties in to be kind of like a last-minute type of thing, and that they would have essentially come in last minute in Episode 7, probably during the big battle, if you will. After Mando leaves, we have Cobb Vanth and the deputy standing inside when chills just go down my spine. A silhouetted figure appears there in the horizon, and it is none other, the one and only, finally brought to live action after appearing in countless animation shows, which is the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch. Cad Bane is finally here in the Book of Boba Fett in live action, and he is just absolute nightmare fuel, guys. He is absolutely terrifying, and this here has to be one of the best Western type of style showdowns ever in the history of Star Wars. Cad Bane offered towards Cobb Vanth and the rest of the townspeople that he'll pay the same that Boba Fett is offering, except the only thing that you have to do is stay put and stay out of it, essentially. And it seems like a pretty good deal, and I even feel like that Cobb Vanth is onto it for just a split second, And Cad Bane even goes on to mention that Boba Fett is honestly evil. He worked with the Empire and he's a horrible person. You shouldn't help him, which is understandingly reasonable. I mean, it's a good argument, I guess. If you could, yeah, it's a good argument, and it's true at the same time. Cad Bane isn't necessarily lying, and this is hopefully where I feel like that we'll see a little bit more of Boba Fett in Episode 7 and really his ruthless side come out, the side that Cad Bane knows that we've seen in the Clone Wars. However, as the two go on to continue and talk, the tension feels like it's rising and higher until we get an epic Western duel between the Deputy, the Marshal, Cobb Vanth, and Cad Bane. Cad Bane, unfortunately, shooting down both of them. It's totally badass, don't get me wrong, but it's the death of Cobb Vanth, and of course I have my fair amount of theories and suspicions on that, but it's something I kind of want to dive deeper into a separate video, essentially. But to kind of give you guys a little bit of a brief understanding is that I think Cobb Vanth is still alive. They're essentially going to bring him to one of the mod parlors, and he's going to become some part cyborg, much like Fennec Shand is. Sure, it feels like a little bit of a stretch, but hey, it's definitely worth throwing out there, and I think I have a fair amount of reasons to kind of back that up. That's something I'm going to talk about in a separate video. This definitely is foreshadowing, and I feel like it's setting up more tensions that we're going to be seeing in the Episode 7, the season finale of the Book of Boba Fett, and on top of that, we have another scene where we have two Pikes go into the Sanctuary and set a bomb, essentially, and blow it up. And thankfully enough, I don't think that I saw Max Rebo in there, but unfortunately, it seems like maybe everybody else is possibly dead. I mean, even then, I feel like the guy would be fine because he survived Jabba the Hutt's sail barge explosion, so I think it's good of enough reason that he could still be alive, and hopefully. These back-to-back scenes here of Cad Bane, first of all, appearing, and then this explosion here at the Sanctuary are definitely high-rising tensions, I feel like, for sure, between what we're going to be seeing here in Episode 7, the season finale, and furthermore, who is really behind the Pike Syndicate. And with the appearance of Cad Bane, we have official confirmation now at this point in time that Cad Bane is indeed helping and behind the Pike Syndicate and their trade-offs happening here with the spice. A larger entity, a bigger puppet, if you will, would, of course, I feel like, be controlling Cad Bane at this point in time, and that there would be none other than Kira, who would be in control of Crimson Dawn, that we see in Solo, a Star Wars story. It definitely feels like at this point in time that's a reoccurring theory, and I'm definitely sticking by it, and I feel like a lot of other Star Wars fans are sticking by this theory, and I think it's totally plausible and reasonable because, yes, sure, it's good for business that Cad Bane is able to sell so much, you know, spice and work with the Pikes and all of that, but I don't really feel like that he necessarily has this brains or the smarts necessarily to be able to be behind such a large and complex situation and spice run here that is going on, and even then, I don't feel like he would know how to really, I guess, manage the money and all of that type of stuff, and working with the clients and all of that type of stuff. And another little bit of a fun fact here about Cad Bane during this point in time in the Book of Boba Fett, it said that he's actually 90 years old during the Book of Boba Fett. Now, I'm not exactly completely sure on how old the Duros life expectancy is, but that is pretty dang old. And he is definitely really terrifying. Now, much like we saw the same standoff happen here between Cobb Vanth and Cad Bane, I definitely think that we're going to be seeing the same thing happen here with Boba and Cad Bane here as well. This is a deleted scene in Star Wars The Clone Wars where we had a duel between Cad Bane and Boba Fett, and it is actually the explanation for how and as of why Boba Fett has a dent in his helmet. Cad Bane will most definitely be back here for Episode 7 of the Book of Boba Fett, and I'm definitely here for it. He's absolutely menacing and absolutely terrifying, and it's actually a little bit of a theory here that I had, I believe in Episode 6 theories, or it's either Episode 5, can't completely remember, but I do remember having a theory video about Cad Bane and him potentially being frenemies, essentially, with Boba Fett. Of course, they're enemies at this point in time, and he's out for blood, and he's honestly one of the most feared and well-known bounty hunters in the entirety galaxy of Star Wars, taking out multiple Jedi during the Clone Wars. But I just have some weird gut feeling deep down inside of me that he would eventually, in the end, hopefully team up with Boba Fett and actually do what's right, maybe. The end of the episode ends with, honestly, one of the largest cliffhangers, I feel like, ever in the Star Wars franchise, and maybe one of the biggest cliffhangers since Avengers Infinity War, and yeah, I kind of know that's saying a bit much, but we end with Luke Skywalker showing Grogu two things. First of all, he shows him that he has Yoda's lightsaber, making one of the Star Wars comics out there non-canon now, and it had a destruction of Yoda's lightsaber, and I'm not completely sure on which, you know, comic or anything that is, essentially, but I think it's worth mentioning, and Luke essentially pulls out the gift here that we have from Mando, and of course, Yoda's lightsaber. We furthermore go on to learn that the Mandalorian's gift towards Grogu is indeed some Beskar chainmail armor, which I think is very cool, and I cannot wait to see a little bit more of, but essentially, we're playing a game of pick and choose here with Luke Skywalker and Grogu. He essentially puts out the lightsaber, and that is the path here for the Jedi, and he puts out the Beskar armor. If he chooses the Beskar armor, he'll go back with the Mandalorian, and if he chooses the lightsaber, he'll stay with Luke Skywalker and go on to be his first Jedi Academy student. And it's something I also plan to deep dive into with a separate video, as I had also mentioned it last week, that I feel like there's a little bit of a theory here going around that, much like Tar Vizsla, who is the first Jedi slash Mandalorian out there and the creator and forger of the Darksaber, I feel like that Grogu is going to essentially follow in the same steps. And while not much is really known about Tar Vizsla and his overall upcoming and uprising and overall story, maybe he has a potential downfall. Maybe there is a downfall of being a Mandalorian and a Jedi at the same time, because something that we do mention, or that we do see being mentioned from Din Djarin the Mandalorian in episode 5, is that Mandalorians are meant to be loyal. They're meant to have attachments. Unlike the Jedi, they're not meant to really have attachments. However, it's something that we're simply just going to have to wait for to see how they really play it out. I feel like if for anything, they were going to furthermore explain maybe the overall history and backstory of Tar Vizsla, hopefully in Mando Season 3, and if not there, maybe even in the Ahsoka Tano series. Episode 5 definitely helps set up for what we're going to be seeing in Season 3 of Mando, and I think that this episode and the ending of this episode gives us that cliffhanger for what we're going to be seeing here, and hopefully at the end of the year of 2022, seeing Mando Season 3, not officially confirmed or anything like that, but I definitely think it would be really, really awesome to see it here. This year, of course, is undoubtedly one of the best pieces of Star Wars content that we've ever had out there, and it is absolutely amazing. I'm still trying to soak it all in, and we're going to be talking about it all week long, and even after that, I feel like, because there's just so much to talk about with episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. It was absolutely amazing, and I loved absolutely every single aspect of the episode, guys. I want to know your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section down below, guys. What do you guys think about episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett? I'd absolutely love to hear what you guys all think, and I'd also love to hear some of your theories and predictions and thoughts and opinions for what we're going to possibly see for episode 7, the season finale, of course, that's going to be coming out next week, and of course, we're also going to be covering that. We cover all types of Star Wars news, leaks, rumors, breakdowns, theories, predictions, and of course, speculations here. And if you're into all that type of stuff, if you like Star Wars, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell to be notified when new videos do come out, guys. Of course, probably in a video if you did enjoy it, as it really does help the channel, and check out Instagram Unofficial Star Wars for more Star Wars related content, guys. Thanks so much for watching today's video. As always, may the Force be with you. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.